For the last year, I've been living with a secret that left scars on my body and fear in my heart. You see the photos on Instagram, the smiles, the garden updates, the kids playing, but you didn't see the hospital bracelet. You didn't see the wrecked car. You didn't hear the sound of metal crushing metal or my children screaming in the back seat. We almost lost everything in a split second. And in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for family members who never showed up, something inside me snapped. Realized that life is too short to be afraid of my own last name. It's too short to let people, even my own father, control my narrative or my finances. The accident didn't just break my bones, it broke my silence. Today, I'm telling you the full story of the crash, the recovery and the legal battle. We are finally ready to fight. No more NDAs, no more secrets. This is the truth. It started like any other Tuesday. The sun was shining in Arkansas. The boys were arguing over who got the last majestic muffin, and I was rushing to get everyone buckled into the car. We were just going to run a few errands, pick up groceries, maybe stop by the library. It was so mundane. I remember looking in the rearview mirror and seeing Freddie kicking his little legs and Israel reading a book. I felt happy. I felt like we were finally in a good rhythm. I had no idea that in 10 minutes, our world would be flipped upside down. I remember turning onto the main road. The radio was playing a worship song, and then out of nowhere, I saw the other car. It was moving too fast. I didn't even have time to brake. I just had time to think, oh, God, the kids. And then darkness, the sound of crunching metal is something you never forget. It stays with you. Segment 2A, the impact, chaos, and screams. When I opened my eyes, everything was blurry. The first thing I noticed was the smell, burnt rubber, and airbags. Then the sound. The silence lasted only a second before the screaming started. Hearing your children scream in terror is the worst sound a mother can hear. My door was jammed. I couldn't get out. I was thrashing around trying to unbuckle, ignoring the sharp pain shooting down my neck and back. Sam, Israel, Freddie. I was screaming their names, trying to get a visual on them. Derick was in the passenger seat, blood on his forehead, but he was moving. He kicked his door open and ran to the back, watching him pull the boys out one by one, checking them for broken bones on the side of the road. It felt like a nightmare. I sat there, trapped in the driver's seat, unable to move my legs, just praying, please God, let them be okay. Take me, but let them be okay. Segment 3, the emergency room waiting for help. The ambulance ride was a blur of lights and sirens. They put me in a neck brace immediately. I was panicked because they had to take the boys in a separate ambulance. Being separated from them was agonizing. When we got to the ER, it was chaos. Doctors, nurses, IVs, they were cutting my clothes off. I kept asking, where is my husband? Where are my sons? Finally, a nurse came in and told me they were being checked out and they were stable. I burst into tears, not from pain, but from relief. But then the reality set in. We were alone. I asked Derick to call my family. I thought, surely for this, they will come. I lay there for hours, staring at the door, waiting to see my mom or my dad walk in. Every time the curtain moved, I hoped it was them. But it was just another doctor. That empty doorway hurt more than the broken ribs. The adrenaline wore off about 2 hours later, and that's when the real pain set in. I had severe whiplash, but it was more than that. My back, I knew something was wrong. The doctors came in with the scan results and their faces were serious. I had fractures that needed immediate attention. We never told the public this, but I actually had to undergo a procedure to stabilize my spine. Lying there, waiting for anesthesia, I felt so small. I kept thinking, I'm too young for this. I have 3 little boys who need me to lift them. The recovery wasn't just a few days of rest. It was weeks of immobility. It was Derick having to carry me to the bathroom. It was avoiding hugs from my kids because my ribs were screaming in pain. That physical brokenness, it changes you. It makes you realize how fragile you really are. For a year, I posted old photos. I posted generic updates. I smiled for the camera when I could barely stand up. People asked, where is Jill? Why is she so quiet? We went dark because I didn't want the circus. I didn't want the tabloids speculating about my health. And honestly, I didn't want to give my family the satisfaction of knowing I was weak. In our family, weakness is seen as a spiritual failing sometimes. If you're suffering, you're supposed to pray it away. So I hid the brace, I hid the tears, and I hid the anger. I curated a life that looked normal because the reality was too messy for Instagram. The physical scars heal, but the mind, that's harder. For months, I couldn't get back in a car without shaking. Every time Derick hit the brakes, I would gasp. But the worst part was the boys. Israel and Sam started having nightmares. They would wake up screaming about the loud noise. Freddie, who is so little, became terrified of his car seat. Watching my children deal with PTSD broke my heart more than any broken bone. We had to get therapy, real trauma-informed therapy, which is something I never had growing up. I realized that I had to be strong for them, but inside I was crumbling. The accident took away our sense of safety, and we are still fighting to get it back. This is the part that is hard to talk about. When you are in a crisis, you find out who your real family is. I lay in that hospital bed for days. My sister Jinger called immediately. Jessa sent flowers. But the people who were supposed to be the head of the family, the silence was deafening. My dad, he eventually sent a text. No visit, no rushing to my side. I think he was afraid of Derick, afraid of the legal tension, afraid of facing the daughter he couldn't control anymore. But fear shouldn't stop a father from seeing his injured child. That empty chair in my hospital room was the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. I realized he isn't coming. He's never coming. And I had to grieve that while I was grieving my own body. Then came the bills, ambulance rides, surgery, physical therapy for people, therapy sessions. The numbers were astronomical. We have insurance, thankfully, but the out-of-pocket costs were drowning us. I sat there looking at a bill for $20,000 and thought about how much money I made for my family over the years. Millions. I birthed my children on TV. I shared my wedding, my honeymoon, my most private moments. And I saw pennies of that. Now, When I needed help, I was scraping by while they sat in a house I helped pay for. That injustice, it burned. Derick looked at me one night holding a bill and said, "Jill, it's not about greed. It's about what is right. It's about our boys." And I finally agreed. Before the accident, Derick was just trying to keep his head down and work hard as a prosecutor. But seeing his family almost taken away in a split second changed him. He realized that working 80-hour weeks for the state wasn't going to protect us from the people who had exploited us for years. He made a huge career shift. He left the DA's office and took a position as a professor and started his own private practice. People thought he was just taking a sabbatical, but really he was clearing his schedule for a bigger fight. He needed the freedom to focus on our case. He went from being Derick, the accountant, to Derick, the litigator. He started looking at our life not just as a tragedy, but as a case file. He told me, "Jill, we aren't victims anymore. We are plaintiffs." For a long time, I told the public we were in a building phase with my parents. I wanted to believe it. I really did. We would go to weddings. We would smile for photos, and we would pretend things were getting better. But the accident tore that mask off. When you are lying in a hospital bed and your dad sends a text, instead of showing up, you realize there is nothing to rebuild. Derick was the one who finally said it out loud. After a tense run-in with my dad at Christmas, Derick told the world, "I do not respect him," and he meant it. That was the moment we stopped pretending. We realized that civil doesn't mean healed. You can't rebuild a house on a foundation that is actively trying to crush you. Once we decided to stop playing nice, we went back to the paperwork. Years ago, when I first asked my dad for help, he sent me an itemized bill for raising me. He charged me for the food I ate as a child, the car I drove, even the space I occupied in his house. I looked at that bill again after the accident. I looked at the millions of dollars TLC paid him for my wedding, my birth specials, my trauma. And then I looked at the medical bills piling up on my kitchen counter. The math didn't add up. He profited off my vulnerability for a decade and then sent me a bill for existing. That document isn't just an insult anymore. It's Exhibit A. We started digging. We went through old emails, text messages, and the few contract pages I was actually allowed to see. We found things we had forgotten about. We found proof of times I was forced to film when I was sick. We found emails where Derick tried to set boundaries and was threatened. It wasn't just memories anymore. It was a paper trail of coercion. I realized that my dad banked on us being too scared or too poor to fight back. But he forgot that he paid for Derick's law school education. Indirectly, of course, he created the very lawyer who is now building the case against him. Derick is brilliant, but we knew we couldn't do this alone. We needed objective eyes. We started a meeting with other attorneys, specialists in entertainment law and financial fraud. Walking into those high-rise offices was intimidating. I felt like the little girl from Arkansas again, out of my depth. But then I laid out the evidence. I showed them the contracts, and seeing their jaws drop, seeing seasoned lawyers get angry on my behalf, It validated everything. They told me, Jill, this isn't just bad parenting. This is exploitation. That was the green light we needed. We weren't just a bitter daughter and son in law. We were victims with a solid case. When I released Counting the Cost, people thought that was my finish line. They thought, okay, Jill told her story. She can move on. But they were wrong. That book wasn't the end. It was the opening statement. Writing it forced me to organize my trauma. It forced me to put dates and dollar signs to the abuse. And once I saw it all on paper, bound in a hardcover book, I realized that a memoir doesn't fix a bank account. A memoir doesn't pay for therapy. The book was necessary for my healing, but the lawsuit, that's necessary for justice. I'm not just an author anymore. I'm a woman who knows exactly what she is owed. Every time I look at Israel, Sam, Freddie, I see the next generation of Duggars. And I made a vow to God that the cycle of financial control stops with me. My dad used money to control us. He used it to buy our silence and our compliance. If I don't fight for what was stolen from me, I am teaching my sons that it's okay to be exploited. I'm doing this so that when they are 18, they have choices I never had. They will have their own money, their own education, and their own voices. If fighting my father is the cost of their freedom, then I will gladly pay it. This lawsuit, it drew a line in the sand. There is no middle ground anymore. You are either with us or you are with him. Jinger has been my rock. She understands. She's out in LA living her own life and she gets it. Some of the others, it's harder. They are still dependent on him. They are scared to like my posts, scared to call me. I've lost siblings over this. I've lost the invite to Christmas. It hurts every single day. But I realized that a relationship based on fear isn't love. It's a hostage situation, and I'm not a hostage anymore. The hardest part of this journey wasn't losing my family. It was almost losing my faith. I was taught that honoring your parents meant obeying them no matter what. So when I sued my dad, I felt like I was sinning. But then I actually read the Bible for myself. Not the verses my dad cherry picked, but the whole thing. I found a Jesus who flipped tables when people were being exploited in the temple. I found a God who hates oppression. My faith has deconstructed and rebuilt into something stronger. I don't follow a list of rules anymore. I follow Jesus. And I know now that standing up for the truth is the most Christian thing I can do. If I could say one thing to my dad, face to face, without the lawyers and the cameras, I would say this. And what happened, it might want this. I just wanted to be your daughter. I wanted you to love me more than you loved the show. I wanted you to protect me, not profit from me. You chose the money. You chose the control. And now we are here. I forgive you, Dad. I really do. But forgiveness doesn't mean I will let you rob me again. Love you enough to stop you. Recovery didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, painful climb. There were days I couldn't get out of bed without crying. But slowly, the physical therapy started to work. I remember the first time I went for a run after the accident, my lungs burned, my legs felt heavy, but I felt alive. I wasn't just a broken body anymore. I was rebuilding, and mentally, I found peace in the small things. Gardening became my therapy again. Watching my peppers grow, feeling the sun on my face. It reminded me that life goes on. I stopped looking over my shoulder. I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. I realized that I survived the crash and I survived my childhood. If I can do that, I can do anything. So what's next for Jill Dillard? For the first time in my life, the answer is whatever I want. We are ready for court if it comes to that. We are ready to fight for every penny that was stolen from us. But more importantly, we are ready to live. I am no longer Jill Duggar, the reality star. I am Jill Dillard, mother, author, survivor, cycle breaker. My boys will know a life where their privacy is respected and their voices are heard. The fear is gone. The secrets are out. And the future, it looks bright, it looks loud, and it looks entirely mine. Thank you for listening to The Truth. This is Jill signing off.